Bing bong, so much New York Knicks news to get to today on Locked On Knicks. I'm surprised it's even the offseason. What up, party people? Zach Parnes, your host here. The show starts right now.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, Big Apple Bunch? If you're riding the 1, 2, 3 train, the Q, the G, the F, maybe you're stuck on the F train like I was all the time, or even if you're outside the 5 boroughs of New York, we got you covered here on Locked On. My name is Zach Parnes. I'm the new host here for this program. 5-time AP award-winning journalist. I've been covering the association for a very long time. A pleasure to do it here with you. Unbelievably stacked show today. I mean, even though it is September, there's enough to go around in a lot of different capacities. Carmelo Anthony inducted into basketball's Hall of Fame. A little bit of shade going on right now with our main man, Jalen Brunson. Whole lot of potential shady contract things that people are alleging. Alleging, people. That's the big word here. We don't want to say anything that isn't the gospel, but it's definitely worth talking about with all of the Kawhi Leonard drama. Then, of course, we got to talk about one of the newer Knicks joining the program, Jordan Clarkson getting a nice welcome from New York faithful. And then, of course, another man a little bit further down the rotation, Guerschon Yabusele. If you don't know about him, you're going to know about him by the end of this show. We are so excited to get into this awesome topic list with you. And, of course, we'll go to the mailbag at the very, very end. But let's get things going here, party people. Melo, a Hall of Famer. Carmelo Anthony, a 10-time All-Star in the NBA. 6 of those nominations came in a New York Knicks uniform. It's only fitting that Melo be retired as a Knick in the Basketball Hall of Fame, which he was, and with some really special words. I wanted to share these with the entire audience because nobody can say it quite as well as Carmelo Anthony.
I've been cheered, criticized. They called me a scorer who couldn't win. They said I was too loyal. Then they said I wasn't loyal enough. But they didn't know what it feels like to carry the weight of whole cities, to lace up your sneakers while the world is dissecting your soul. They never saw the lonely nights, the aching knees, the silent battles. But I kept going. I kept shooting. And I kept believing. Not because I had all the answers, but because I had a why. My why was bigger than me. My why was every kid in the hood who ever thought greatness wasn't for them. My why was my son.
Carmelo Anthony, now a part of the enshrined class of the Basketball Hall of Fame. Look, man, he wore a bunch of different jerseys, but New York was home, let's just be honest. The Denver Nuggets times, they were great. We got to showcase a whole lot of it. Maybe you can even say further up New York was a different kind of home at Syracuse University, capturing a national championship. Now his son getting to play there under the orange umbrella. Really special stuff for Melo. 22.5 points a game throughout his career, 6 rebounds, almost 3 assists. Of course, just doing time and time again a ton of damage, repping that Knicks organization. And ultimately, I think when we look at the All-Star seasons, folks, they are really what end up making the Hall of Fame career. Third in MVP voting back in 2012, 2013 when he averaged 22.2 points per game. I mean, man was just on fire, shooting 45% from the field, just had a totally established game. I know when I go back and watch old Melo highlights, I almost feel like I'm in a trance a lot of times. And I know that we would love to have that kind of energy joining the rotation now. That includes, obviously, forwards like Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. Melo would certainly, I think, love to be a part of this program, but fittingly so, gets to go on to his next chapter here. Really exciting stuff throughout the entire speech from Carmelo, just hearing a lot of the anecdotes that he shared, a lot of the shared wisdom that he was able to have alongside the Team USA guys as well, and just sort of building that basketball empire that we know him oh so well for. But got to give a shout out to Carmelo Anthony, very first and foremost here on the program. It is just absolutely incomplete if we do not. Heck of a speech, heck of a career for Melo. We're looking forward to seeing what other threes to the head he starts throwing later on in life, whether that be in the broadcast booth or in some sort of analyst position in studio. There's a lot of landing ground for Carmelo Anthony nowadays, and I have a feeling that we have not seen the last of the man who really dazzled inside Madison Square Garden pretty much every single night that he put that uniform on. That being said, folks, a lot of other topics to get to today. The Jalen Brunson thing is front and center. A lot of people have a lot of questions. Let's dive into it. For those who don't know, Kawhi Leonard, kind of at the center of a big investigation now in the NBA concerning a $28 million payment that he accepted from a company called Aspiration, which was a eco-charitable company that Leonard apparently never gave any work to, essentially a no-show job. I know we're used to hearing that from the five families over on The Sopranos, but apparently very much alive and well in the world of the NBA. But Leonard getting this money, or apparently getting this money, according to a bombshell expose from Pablo Torre, former ESPN journalist who now has his own podcast, Pablo Torre Finds Out. And let's be honest, Pablo did find out in a big way about Leonard. Now, why am I bringing this up here on Locked On Knicks? Good reason. Because Torre, in the same breath of mentioning the Kawhi Leonard contract, also mentioned that a lot of people started hitting his tip line, so to speak, about the Knicks' own Jalen Brunson. Investigate that contract. He's been told ad nauseum. Now, he says it's mainly from enemies of Jalen Brunson, which may imply that there was less tampering there than the actual truth of the matter in Los Angeles. But the bottom line is that Brunson's name has now kind of been thrown in with this. So I want to take us back just a little bit to when Brunson actually got this deal done. So Jalen Brunson signs $110 million for 4 years with the Knicks in 2022, coming over from the Dallas Mavericks. A lot of people had questions about that. I was going through the Reddit thread not too long ago, what people were actually saying. How about comments like Walmart Fred VanVleet and DeAndre Ayton, twice the player that Brunson is? Chew on that for a moment. We always think we're right in the moment, that's for sure. But ultimately, Brunson has kind of been muddied in all of this. A lot of people think that there's some affiliation based on the fact that Brunson has close ties with his dad, who was a member of course, the Knicks staff for several years, and then with Leon Rose, his godfather. So the investigation, I think, is not entirely unprompted, or for the calls for an investigation into Brunson, but by the same token, innocent until proven guilty. We don't have anything from Pablo Torre or other journalists that connect Brunson in any sort of scheme, similarly to the way that Kawhi Leonard was connected. Leonard essentially just taking all of this money and running away with it without a single endorsement. There's been other things that Torre had mentioned on his show about other miscellaneous players who receive large donations for essentially one piece of content or one endorsement. But this seems to kind of transcend all of that. This from Leonard seems to be on a much different scale overall than people expect. Now, of course, Brunson on a bit of some different money now. When we're taking a look at the actual deal to a 4-year, $156.5 million contract extension through 2028 and 2029, which would suggest that Brunson is being paid to market value now. I think the question at all of this, at least at the center of all of it, is Brunson at all culpable in something? And right now, the answer is no. And I think that's what should keep Knicks fans at ease, ultimately, is that we don't have any official statement. Of course, there are lots of salacious things that are being said, but that's sports media for you. I don't know what else to say. Happens nearly every single day in all different facets. This could be a lot more interesting, though, to see what actually happens in the Leonard saga and whether or not further investigations are conducted into other players. I don't know how quickly that happens. And frankly, I don't even know if this Clippers one gets solved by the time that we're tipping the basketball off in October. But ultimately, for now, Leonard with a really bad look out west, and it's got to make you wonder, are fines coming? Are suspensions coming? What happens to Steve Ballmer in all of this? Clearly, probably not anything so egregious, but by the same token, a punishment could absolutely be levied down. Now, Brunson's name has been thrown in so much with this that it just kind of seems like inevitably he will be the next player investigated. And I don't know if that's with or without cause. That's really up for league officials to determine and reporters to actually do the digging the same way that Pablo Torre did. But in this current moment, under the guise of what we know thus far, Jalen Brunson due to make about $35 million this year, $37.5 million in 2026-27, and then $40 million by the time he turns 31 and 32 when he will exercise his player option in 2028 at the end of the 28-29 season. That being said, Jalen Brunson, a New York Knick, an unpenalized New York Knick. Maybe in the eyes of the masses, he takes too many fouls. But ultimately, Brunson, scot-free in all this. We're going to be keeping an eye on it. Well, if you're listening to our show, I'm guessing that you've heard of the Roommates Show, of course, with Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson, and get to take their act on the road sometimes and perform in front of a crowd. That's exactly what they did earlier this week. Joined by one of the newest members of the franchise, Jordan Clarkson. It's a clip that absolutely is worth playing.
We get used to that in the Garden. You know, the Garden's gonna be great vibes. It's gonna be different from Utah, brother. We got to over there.
The Garden most definitely is going to be a little bit different than Salt Lake City, Utah. Excited to see Jordan Clarkson rep the orange and blue this year. Should be really exciting to see him do so as he figures to back up Mikal Bridges at the 2 spots. Ultimately, Clarkson is kind of like a plug-and-play player that the Knicks have been missing for some time. We got to remember, 6th Man of the Year winner in the 2021 season, 2014-2015 all-rookie team. He's only spent his time with a few organizations, but has really dazzled in all of them, Cleveland, LA, and then, of course, most recently, out in Utah. Take a look at the last season numbers for Mr. Clarkson. 16 points per game, efficiency from the field, 49.3%. Really loving that number. Had a bit of a regression at the free throw line where he shot below 80% for the first time in his career since 2016, but I feel like that's just kind of a drop in the bucket. Got to see him shoot the 3 a lot more last year than we had in previous years. 36% from downtown. That's exactly what this New York squad is looking for going forward. Granted, had a bit of a bigger role in that offense out there in Utah. They were pretty much identityless last year, but Clarkson was certainly part of the limited identity that they actually did have. And now you're going to be inserting him into a position where he's got that 2 or 3 spot on lock, maybe even running the point for them occasionally. I don't see the 3 as much as I do the 2, obviously. But Clarkson, all in all, I mean, getting this money to come in after a year where he only plays 37 games, started 9 of them for the Jazz, was just dealing with a lot of different lower body ailments throughout the year. But ultimately, I'm excited to see what he can bring here heading into year 12 now in the association. It's hard to believe that it has been that long for Clarkson, who was drafted the Lakers back in 2014. 7th in Rookie of the Year voting, folks. That's how he ended up on that first rookie team. But when we talk about him being melded into a Mike Brown offense, it seems like we're going to be able to see some really quality minutes from him. I'm expecting somewhere in the 20 to 25 range next year seems reasonable enough. Clearly that kind of changes if, Bridges is ever, God forbid, hurt, which doesn't seem like it happens ever, or if Josh Hart is taking a sit in early season games as well. But the thing about Clarkson is that he's got this ability both as a floor general and as a pure slasher. Just great ability to actually create his own shot. And even though with Utah he was doing a bit less of that and more of the isolation kind of 3-ball game that we saw from him within Utah, I am still extremely excited to see what kind of minutes are actually productive for him and what kind of regressive minutes look like for him too. I know that's a weird thing to be excited about, to see how a guy isn't going to complement your team, but the sooner that Clarkson can actually start to find his rhythm within this offense, I think the better that this team gets. I certainly think that he's a step above replacements last year, just from a perspective of being a better athlete, and also, again, that kind of slashing ability, which I feel like this team has been so desperately after since they were sort of just denied that opportunity last year against teams like the Celtics, or, of course, even deeper into the postseason with clashes against the Indiana Pacers. My biggest thing for Clarkson and my biggest just question mark for the flamethrower, besides obviously like how do you gel and whatnot, but how does he really soak into a secondary role for this team? Now, I said 20 to 25 minutes. That seems fair, but we know that fewer minutes can come to guys like this. So what does he do if that number starts turning to 10 to 15 or even lower? I mean, obviously we don't have a Tom Thibodeau run squad anymore, so there are sure to be more reserves coming off of a Mike Brown bench. But I do just wonder, a lot of guys, like Clarkson, who have been pretty ball dominant throughout their career, tend to sulk a little bit. There tends to be a little bit more of the feet dragging. Do we get that from him? I don't believe so. I think when you're 32 years old and you're in the association, it's all about knowing what role to play. Remember hearing that quote a while back that said that, to come into the league, you have to have an absurd amount of confidence. And to stay within it, you have to have an absurd amount of humility. Can Jordan Clarkson bring that humility? I think that's the million-dollar question. Already, though, seems like the team chemistry is off to a good start on the roommate show, getting the opportunity to vibe out with Josh and with Jalen as well. But Clarkson, man, exciting to see a righty come in here as a backup shooting guard and backup point guard for Brunson and really fill some of the holes that this team has been so desperately looking to fill over time. One of the Knicks' newest reserves has been doing some really big things. To find out even more, we're going to knyt.hoops on TikTok.
Knicks fans, Gershon Yabusele just had the game of his life for France in Eurobasket yesterday, and honestly, this one's got me hyped. He dropped 36 points, hit 6 threes, grabbed 6 rebounds, and even blocked 2 shots. That's not just scoring, that's an all-around performance that we did not expect when the Knicks picked him up. And keep in mind, Yabusele is not just another random rotation guy out there. He's the captain of France's national team. That tells you about his leadership, his confidence, and the respect that he's earned overseas. Watching him dominate like this, you start to wonder, maybe this wasn't just a depth signing. Maybe Yabusele actually carves out a real role in Mike Brown's system this year. So Knicks fans, I gotta ask you guys, could Gershon Yabusele actually be the most underrated move of the Knicks' entire offseason?
To be determined, knyt.hoops. Appreciate his video breakdown for it. Really, really special stuff from Yabusele in that game. Obviously, just coming alive offensively. I really love this guy's story, and that's really where I want to go with all of this, because I feel like there's such a straight and linear line for so many players in the NBA in terms of I arrive to the league, I play in the league for X number of years, I leave the league. That is not the case with Gershon Yabusele. Pretty much thought of to be one of the best potential prospects internationally in the 2016 draft. Yabusele ends up getting picked in the first round by the Boston Celtics. Goes on to play a couple years for the team, and honestly just didn't really have much of a spot. 17-18, listen to the numbers. 33 games played, just a menial number of points, minutes, 7 minutes a game. The next season, 6 minutes a game. And then he's out of the NBA, just like that. Abroad, here we come. It's a story that's as old as time with a lot of guys. It doesn't cook out in the NBA, go play in Europe. Lots of good opportunities over there. But he had a Billy Mays moment. But wait, there's more. A whole lot more for Yabusele. Goes on to play with one of the premier clubs in Europe, Real Madrid. Earns 2 silver medals with the French national team. Playing his absolute heart out there, alongside guys like Evan Fournier and in the most recent Olympics, Victor Wembanyama, of course. And then, all of a sudden, a break. Bada bing, bada boom. Last season, at age 28, going to the Philadelphia 76ers, things just start changing for Yabusele. He gets into the rotation, and in a big way. 7 and 6 minutes in those opening 2 seasons. How about last year, 27 minutes a game? 70 games played, 43 of them were starts for Yabusele. And he just made it happen in all different facets. 11 points a game, forcing more than a turnover a game if you account for both blocks and steals. 2 assists per game, 6 rebounds per game. And now he suits up with the Knicks. 2 years, $12 million. He figures to come in and be a formidable backup for OG Anunoby, who, let's face it, absolutely needs to be one of the backed up guys on this team, just knowing how many issues he's had with knees, quads, etc. Now you bring in a real veteran who not just has the NBA experience, but also the international from a country standpoint, and also from playing with one of the top clubs in the entire world in Real Madrid that is not in the NBA. Very, very intrigued by this. Just from a perspective of Yabusele kind of having that opportunity to maybe even flex into the 5 from a small ball perspective. I could see a lineup going out there that's something of the likes of, either Brunson or Clarkson, then Bridges, Anunoby, Yabusele, and maybe even Mitchell Robinson. I realize that isn't so small, but then if we want to throw in Dadier as well, that's a great reserve unit that ultimately is playing a lot smaller than I think that people realize. So Yabusele for me just kind of has this sort of X factor, but I'm wondering if the minutes end up being the same thing. I know that's a massive concern in a lot of people's minds, but for 2 years, $12 million, you're getting him for a bag of chips. So whether he plays 10 or 20 next year has yet to be seen. I don't know if we're going to see him in that high 30 region the same way that we saw him in the dumpster fire that was the Philadelphia 76ers last year. But Yabusele bringing special things to the table. And I think a guy like this also, when you're talking about just a perspective of there's not a lot of plates in this league and a whole lot of mouths to feed. And he looks like the guy that's ready to show up, ask for seconds and thirds, no matter what is given to him. So I think when we look back at that game against Poland, which happened on September 2nd, 36 points, 6 rebounds, then goes out a few days later against Iceland, drops 10-4 and 3 assists with 2 blocks as well. This kid, or not even a kid anymore, this guy can certainly play beyond his means and at a very high level. The other thing that I really like is if you go back and watch the film from him from a Sixers perspective, he is a nightmare when he guards Jason Tatum. I mean, just hand in the face constantly, limiting him on all fronts. Tatum plays poorly against a guy like Yabusele, just from a perspective of aggressive defense, that kind of hustle mentality. He brings it. And especially bringing it with the frame that he has at 6'8", 270 pounds, he's going to be a formidable bruiser on the inside for this Knicks team that certainly can take all the help they can get, because let's be honest, right now, the guys on the interior, Cat and Mitchell Robinson, they're not really getting that same sort of presence on the interior. I know Anunoby can provide it, but by the same token, he is a top 3 wing defender in the league for a reason. He's meant to be out there on the perimeter, get that quick first step on guys. This is a true enforcer signing. Yabusele performing above and beyond expectations internationally. Let's hope he can do the exact same for Mike Brown and crew. I mentioned that Carmelo Anthony going into the Hall of Fame, repping the Knicks. He certainly didn't skimp on that. We got to revisit Melo's Hall of Fame speech. Take a listen to the love that he's showing to New York.
To the New York Knicks, in the city of New York, the mecca of basketball, you gave me more than a jersey. You gave me an identity. From the lights of Madison Square Garden to the heartbeat of every borough, I felt that energy. I carried it. I became it. New York is not for the faint of heart. It's pressure, it's expectation, but it's also pride, power, and poetry in motion. You show me what it means to carry a city on your back with grace, with grit, and with love. To the fans, your passion never wavered. Even when things got tough, your fire lit up every corner of the garden. Every chant, every roar, every boo, every moment, we felt it. I felt it. And to the Knicks organization, thank you for believing in me, for trusting me to represent the city that never sleeps, that never folds, that never stops. I may have played around the league, but my soul will always echo 33rd and 7th. Once a Knick, always a Knick.
Once a Knick, always a Knick. Beautiful stuff from Carmelo Anthony. I mean, again, like we were talking about it earlier in the show, but just a guy that personified basketball culture in New York. 3-time Olympic gold medalist, 2012 NBA scoring leader again. I mean, just really, really special. Knicks numbers, by the way, 25, 7, 3. And then the shooting splits, 44%, 37% from downtown, and 83% from the charity stripe. He led the team in pretty much everything in 2016 as well, and setting that MSG Magic on fire as well. 62 points, a New York Knicks record belonging to Carmelo Anthony. He had a 50, a 46, and a 45-point game while within New York. I mean, this guy is just so special. Top 10 scorer in NBA history, too. Carmelo Anthony carried the torch, lit up a lot of rooms at home, all throughout the Bronx, Queens, and even beyond, all the way to the West Coast, to the Knicks fans that have migrated to other parts of this country and even across the world. Carmelo Anthony, a pure staple. It's going to be hard to replicate somebody like that. Jalen Brunson figures to carry the new identity, which is why I want to ask you guys at home, before we go to the mailbag, can Jalen Brunson ever, and I'm talking ever, come close to the shoes that Carmelo Anthony wears? I know the immediate response from you all is going to be, well, if he wins a ring, sure. If he wins 2 rings, definitely. But is there a way in your mind that you could ever look at Brunson, let's say for 4 more years, performing at such an elite level? Can he do that? Can he become this team's new star and really ride that maybe into a Hall of Fame career? I don't think he's even close thus far. I think if you were to give him a fair shot of making the Hall, maybe like 15, 20%. But that's me just speculating. What is the actual chance it happens? Probably pretty low. But even still, I'm holding out hope and a lot of faith that Jalen Brunson can carry that torch in a very big way, as he has done thus far, putting up multiple 30-plus point performances in a Knicks uniform. But Carmelo Anthony, just an awesome speech for the Basketball Hall of Famer now. 20 points per game in his first 14 seasons in the league. Melo, hard to replicate. Let us know at Locked On Knicks. We always want to hear from you, friends. Before we wrap things up, I want to head into the Twitter mailbag really quick. Also want to remind you that the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Bet $5, you can get $200 in bonus bets. NBA season is coming up soon, folks. Make sure you head on over to the FanDuel app to get started. Code LOCKEDONKnicks. All right, so folks, a quick dive into Twitter earlier for the mailbag. Found something very interesting. Jalen Brunson is the greatest Knicks player ever. Agree or disagree? That was not what was interesting. The first reply is really what caught my eye. From John Parker at JP52291 says, I think a lot of people forget Ewing and his era when they ask this, and they're basically saying Brunson greater than Melo. I think the answer is still Ewing or Walt even, but Brunson is 28 and will likely be the greatest Knick ever when it's all said and done. Kind of piggybacking off of how we left the last segment, championship rings clearly would change this entire discussion, especially given how tight the competition is, the very limited variety in the NBA right now. I mean, there is no room for error, and if Jalen Brunson, given his undersized stature, quote-unquote undersized, can make it happen for the Knicks, I'm in agreement with John. There's no way that Brunson can't be the greatest Knick ever if he's not doing it in today's NBA. But clearly Patrick Ewing, given all the accolades and just the perseverance of the time and the way that he was just so clearly one of the top players in the league and clearly the number one guy for the Knicks in his heyday, has to probably hold a candle to all of this. Carmelo Anthony has to be a part of this conversation too. Realize that he spent even a majority of his career in Denver and not even in the Knicks uniform, but just the prolificness of the scoring, right? That 2012 scoring absolute bonanza that he had has to warrant him in this discussion as well. I think it's those three. I think Walt Frazier probably just missing the list at maybe 4 or 5. But ultimately, for me, it's got to come down to these 3 guys of Melo, of Brunson, and of course, Patrick Ewing, the absolute legend. That's the first thing that we're taking a look at here on the mailbag. Other thing I'm looking at here is kind of something inspirational. Really good stuff for Karl Anthony Towns, who says, quote, this is possibly the proudest moment I've ever had in my life. This one coming from NBA_New York. That's New York Basketball on Twitter. Karl Anthony Towns with Dominican Republic President Luis Abinader in Puerto Plata on construction of a new 2,500-seat arena and youth sports facility that CAT is funding in San Diego. This is going to build a basketball arena specifically for youth. It's going to have the capacity to accommodate more than 2,500 spectators and will be managed through an entity called Go Ministries. Very awesome project for Cat. I mean, we already know that this guy has been just an outpouring of love, not only to the fans when they have rejected him at a lot of points, not only here, but in Minnesota as well. Karl Anthony Towns making a big impact outside of New York. We always love to see that. That being said, party people, that's going to do it for the show today. Locked on Knicks. You've been watching. We really appreciate you guys joining us. Join us right back here tomorrow. We got the latest in the Knickerbocker news. It's coming your way. Bing bong. Thanks for joining us, kiddos. We'll see you later.